Good morning, friends. I am Cam Gwaltney. It's so great to have you here with us today, and welcome to the Lunch and Learn. Today, we're going to focus our time on two things. Number one, getting a big picture understanding of who Atlantic Shores is, what we believe, what the community is all about, and who lives here. And number two, digging in deep to the unique financial structure of this community. It's going to be a great time. Here we go. I'd like to first take a minute to thank the resident ambassadors who have joined us today. I hope that you had a great time at lunch sitting around the table asking them the hard questions about life here at Atlantic Shores. Our resident ambassadors are fantastic folks who know what it's like to live here and who are willing, ready, and able to answer your questions. So resident ambassadors, thank you so much for joining. I also want to take a minute to introduce you to our sales staff. You can see their pictures on the screen right now, and we do forgive Michelle for cheering for the wrong football team, but we let it slide. Our sales counselors are the folks here at the community who will walk with you through the process of trying to determine whether or not Atlantic Shores is the right fit for you. It's the right fit for a lot of folks. It's not the right fit for everybody, and their job is to help you determine if it is for you. So let's move on and talk a little bit about what Atlantic Shores is. Who are we? Atlantic Shores is an award-winning continuing care retirement community here in Virginia Beach. Now, what is a continuing care retirement community, you might ask? It's pretty simple. It's a community that offers everything you could ever need, from independent living to assisted living to memory care to a licensed skilled nursing facility. A CCRC has everything right on one campus. Now, in our immediate market, there are 3 continuing care retirement communities: Atlantic Shores, Westminster Canterbury over on Shore Drive, and then Harbor's Edge in downtown Norfolk. Those are the 3 communities that would meet that criteria of being a continuing care environment. Next, we're a private neighborhood. When you came on campus today, you drove right past the gatehouse, and that gatehouse is manned 24 hours by our fantastic security team. And we're an independent community in more ways than one. While the majority of our campus, yes, is independent living, we are also independent in our structure and in our governance. We're not a part of some big company. We don't have stockholders that we have to protect. We are completely independent, and we're going to go into this and why it's important a little bit later. Our residents create our culture. That's the byproduct of being an independent community. And here's the sales guy saying, we're a best-in-class product with options for everyone. What makes us unique? And as we go through this presentation, you're actually going to see a bunch of pictures that we didn't pull off the website. They were just taken with someone's camera of residents living life here at Atlantic Shores. You see folks out at the spring garden party, at an Alzheimer's fundraiser, and even the pickleball group, which is growing in popularity. In fact, the residents and staff have a pretty ferocious rivalry with pickleball. The residents won last year, it tied this past year, so we'll see who takes it next year. But the community is founded upon this, a belief that residents deserve lifestyles that are characterized by self-confidence, independence, and friendship. And as we'll talk a little bit today, I'm going to encourage you to go visit communities all over the place, but the greatest benefit that anyone gets from living in a community like Atlantic Shores are these things: self-confidence, independence, and friendship. Those are the true markers of a successful retirement for seniors living in communities like ours. So what else makes us unique? We are creating a neighborhood that reflects our city. And we use the word creating really intentionally because our community is changing all the time. Atlantic Shores looks very different now than it did 5 years ago, and hopefully it'll look different 5 years from now than it does today, because the residents who live here are creating the culture in their community. You'll see a photo here of a bunch of our residents out at a 50s themed party. It was a great night. And then you'll see our executive director, Jenny Majiri, in the bottom corner, dressed up in some kind of Santa Christmas outfit. The whole Christmas party and holiday parties are a whole different madness. I'll explain it to you later. It's a great time. You should join us for one. So what else makes us unique? And I want to sit here for a minute. Atlantic Shores is a resident-owned real estate cooperative. Yes, that's a mouthful. It's also a little strange because we are the only community in the state of Virginia that operates this way. There's no other senior living community in our state that operates as a resident-owned real estate cooperative. So what does that mean? Well, the cooperative structure places residents in charge of their neighborhood. Like I said a minute ago, we are independent in more ways than one. At our highest level of governance at Atlantic Shores, we're founded and run by a board of directors. And that board has 7 seats. Now, 4 of those 7 seats, a majority, must be held by resident owners who are elected by their peers. What does that mean? It means that the people who live here are calling the shots. The residents who have committed to living at Atlantic Shores are in charge of this neighborhood from top to bottom. From our biggest decisions down to the smallest ones, we exist to serve the residents who live here. We don't have some stock price that we have to protect. We don't have all these outside investors. I say it to folks all the time, Atlantic Shores is actually a pretty selfish community. But the self that we serve are the individual folks who live here. Now, why is this important, you might ask? Let's rewind a couple years. You remember what happened in 2020? COVID was crazy. Life changed. Everything changed. In the senior living community, the whole industry, it was not unaffected. Think about all the stories you saw in the news about retirement homes and skilled nursing facilities, and let's think about what happened. COVID hits, and these big companies that have stock prices to protect and communities all over the countries, they have a pretty serious issue going on. They've got a stock price to protect and they need to increase revenue. But what happened? You can't have new admissions, right? COVID stopped folks from moving into communities. So when you can't create new business, what do you do to protect and to grow your revenue? You charge more for the services that you're already offering to your current customers. And that's what happened through COVID. You see, these huge senior living operators had to take the focus off of their residents and put it on profit. And that's why we saw so many communities across the country with 9%, 10%, 11% fee increases on the residents who were already there. Because the residents' well-being was not the most important thing. And that's what makes this community so different. That we don't worry about what's happening beyond our community. That's why I can sit here and confidently tell you that over the last 10 years, our monthly fees have gone up on average between 4 and 5%. Our average is about 4.2 over the last 10 years. And so I can also confidently say your fee's probably going to go up between 4 and 5%. But here's the benefit, is that while it might cost 4% to continue to provide the services that we're providing to residents, there's no one on the other end saying, well, let's tack on an extra 2 to put some money in our pockets. We exist for the residents. They're in charge. They create the culture. Pretty unique, huh? So you've heard a lot from me about what it's like to live here, but I want to introduce you to one of our residents named Beth. Beth chose to relocate to Virginia Beach from Colorado, and she's going to tell you a little bit about what her experience at Atlantic Shores has been like.
I found Atlantic Shores after traveling for 5 years in my motorhome, traveling all around the United States, and I knew it was time to get settled. I chose Virginia Beach because I wanted to be near my brother who lives in Bedford, Virginia. Since I came to Atlantic Shores, I feel that my life has improved tremendously. I'm a lot less stressed. I have many, many more friends right here gathered in one spot. My family is also very much at peace with my being here because we have all the facilities, all the amenities that we have here, including the wellness center and medical facility and all that. So it's a lot less stress for the whole family. So my favorite thing, hands down, living at Atlantic Shores is the community itself. I love pickleball. I love bocce ball. There's so much to do with other people. I taught school for 30 years, and so I missed it after I retired. And so now I get to teach exercise. I get to teach dance. One of my favorite parts of the dance happened recently when we were invited to do the ice cream and cake dance for ODU. And so I was approached, would I like to teach some of the residents that dance? And well, it blossomed because then the staff got involved. We had a blast learning that dance. I didn't even know about it. I went on YouTube and discovered it and taught the rest of the crew. And so now we've even had a command performance to do it since then. So we will, I'll just keep teaching dance and loving it as long as I can stay vertical. I like being an ambassador for for Atlantic Shores because I love living here.
If there's one thing that I want you to take away from our time together today, it's this slide. So tune in. Your answer to the following question is what needs to define what you do next. And that question is simple. What is most important to you? See, I spoke a minute ago about how there are 3 continuing care communities here in our market: Atlantic Shores, Westminster Canterbury, and Harbor's Edge in downtown Norfolk. Now, I have the privilege of leading the sales and marketing team here at Atlantic Shores. My wife happens to be a salesperson at Harbor's Edge in downtown Norfolk, and we both helped my grandmother move into Westminster Canterbury. So yes, I have a ton of useless knowledge for a 36-year-old guy about senior living communities. But it's important to think about this fact, that my family is so deeply rooted in senior living communities, but people come up and they say, well, why didn't your grandmother move to Atlantic Shores? Why didn't she move to Harbor's Edge? And her why is that she knew the answer to this question. So let's rewind a little bit. When my grandmother was 82 years old, my grandfather got diagnosed with cancer. And after a short battle, he passed away. And my grandmother said that she wanted to wait for about a year before she moved from the home that they lived in. Now, my wife and I had the privilege of actually living with my grandmother during this time, and it was a huge blessing to us. But we asked her, Nanny, where do you want to go? And she knew right off the bat where she wanted to move next. And her answer was very simple. She had 3 friends from Community United Methodist Church, the church that she and my grandfather went to for 60 years, 3 friends that had already moved into Westminster Canterbury. And so that was important to her. And secondly, my grandparents lived in a home that backed up to the Lynnhaven River in Virginia Beach. And I'd grow up there spending summers swimming in the pool and going out and getting broken down on a jet ski on the Lynnhaven River. And it was a place where they felt peace. They would sit out on the back deck looking at the river. And when my grandfather passed away, my grandmother said, if there's a way that I can have a view of that river, I'll always feel connected to Woody. Really specific, right? So I ask you today, does Atlantic Shores have a view of the Lynnhaven River? No. Neither does Harbor's Edge. But at Westminster Canterbury, if you go to the old building and you go on the side that people don't want to be on, and you go up high enough, you can see over Shore Drive and over those trees, and you can see into the Lynnhaven River, above Chicks and Bubba's. And so we found her an apartment there. But notice what she didn't say. My grandmother did not say, I need X amount of square footage. She didn't say, I need this number of bedrooms or bathrooms. She didn't say, I need a place with great food. Her why was super specific. And if I asked each of you today, what is most important to you, I can almost guarantee that none of your answers will be the same as my grandmother's were. And that's the point. That's how it's supposed to be. Because friends, what you'll find when you start visiting these communities, a lot of these places are very, very similar. You're going to find great people, really kind folks that are really interesting and enjoyable to be around. You'll find great food, nice accommodations, a place where you'd be happy to live. But what you really need to think about is what is most important. What are the things that after you've lived somewhere for 6 months, you're telling your friends about? Because you're not talking about your apartment or food. You're talking about the things that you're doing with your time. You're talking about fishing in the lake. So we see Mr. Flannery there with a huge bass that he caught out on the lake. It's something that brings him joy. So if you love fishing, then you need to be in a community that will allow you to fish. Or maybe you've got a green thumb, and the fact of giving up your garden just terrifies you. Well, then you need to consider that. Move to a community that allows you to continue pursuing your passion of gardening. Or maybe you're a photographer and you want to be around nature. Whatever it is, it's going to be different for everyone. And so you need to go home and take some time answering this question. What is truly most important to you? And like I said earlier, Atlantic Shores is the right fit for a lot of folks, but it's not for everybody, and that's okay. Let's talk a little bit about lifestyle. Like I said earlier, one of the greatest benefits that folks get from making a move to a community, friendship, the relationships, and lifestyle is happening all the time. We are off campus all the time. We've got friends that are going on trips to Nashville. We're doing cruises. We're doing kayaking trips. If you can dream it, we can make it happen. And what's truly unique about this is that it's the residents who push all this stuff. Because we're resident owned, I actually have 700 bosses. Most of them are pretty cool. But when the residents get together and say, hey, we'd like to do X, Y, and Z, it's management's job to make it happen. And so again, the residents are the ones creating the culture and setting these trips. And you'll see photos on the slides of different things that residents have done, from ODU basketball games to Tarnished Truth to taking a cruise in the middle of the summer. So much is happening here that you can take part in. But let's talk about what's happening on campus. Atlantic Shores for Independent Living Alone offers 3 different dining environments, 3 different restaurants on campus. There are group fitness classes happening all the time. Most days during the week, there are about 3 or 4, and usually one of them is done in the pool. And if you've never done an aquatics pool class, you're welcome to come join one even before you move here, just to try it out and see if you enjoy it. Educational and artistic events happening all over campus, and a lot of these are resident run. Again, the residents are creating the culture. Residents teaching art classes, history classes, whatever it may be that they're passionate about, the residents are taking it and running it. And of course, you'll find tons of social clubs, spiritual clubs, card groups, resident committees, etc. In a neighborhood of this size, you are bound to find people with common interests. And I'll give you a perfect example. Not many communities set out to form harmonica clubs. Is this a surprise to anyone? No. When you get a brochure for Atlantic Shores, there's not going to be a guy playing the harmonica on the front, okay? But we have a thriving harmonica club. Why? Because someone's answer to what is most important to you was playing music with other people. Now, I'm a musician. I'm a guitar player. I enjoy playing guitar in my house. I love playing guitar with a band. And so a couple of residents here who all played harmonica ended up getting together to play harmonica. And now we literally have a thriving harmonica club, and half the people who are in it don't even live here. They come off campus to join the harmonica club. Now again, this is not a big benefit to the sales team. We didn't say, you know what we should do, management? We're gonna go start a harmonica club and get a bunch of people to move here. No, residents started a harmonica club, and now it's thriving. Same way it was with pickleball. We didn't offer pickleball a couple years back until a couple here got here and said, we love pickleball, we want to start teaching it. And now we have a thriving group of pickleball players. Lifestyle is happening on campus, and it's resident-led and resident-directed. So whatever it is that you're passionate about, chances are that when you get here, we can help you find some folks that are passionate about it too. Let's move on. Everybody wants to know, what's included in the monthly service fees? And yes, there are monthly service fees. And your sales counselor can dig into this a little bit more with you after the meeting today. Residents receive a monthly credit to use across our restaurants. And now this is not going to get you 1 meal a day. It's not supposed to get you 1 meal a day. Maybe you should ask yourself this: how many days a week are you going out and sitting in a restaurant? For most of us, it's maybe 4 times a week, and that's what most residents utilize our restaurants for in independent living. All the utilities are included, so your electric, your water, your sewer, your trash, and then housekeeping and flat linen services are provided by our housekeeping staff. They'll come by every other week to clean your home, and they'll also launder your bed linens and your bath linens for you. Now, each apartment or villa at Atlantic Shores does have its own washer and dryer in the unit, so you don't need to worry about any communal laundry spaces or sharing laundry spaces or anything like that. We spoke about lifestyle events a bit ago. All of that will be included in your monthly fee, as well as your use of the fitness facilities in the indoor pool. There are 2 gyms on our campus, and we also have personal trainers. So if working out and exercise might be a little new or foreign to you, don't be afraid. We've got personal trainers here that can help you learn the ropes and help you build a fitness plan based upon your goals, your limitations, and what you want to accomplish. Our transportation services are going all the time. You've probably seen the bus around town. Everything from small things like grocery store trips and running to the bank or running to the commissary to, like we spoke about earlier, setting up flights for a trip to Nashville. Whatever it is, our team's got you covered. Landscaping and maintenance is all provided by the staff here. And what's really important to note here is that those team members are Atlantic Shores employees. They're not people that we've hired out. So if someone from maintenance comes and knocks on your door, you can rest assured knowing that that person is background checked and they're held to the same standard of accountability and excellence that I am. Our team can take care of it. And the 24-hour security services and a 24-hour EMT. And this is a great benefit for folks because in independent living, most residents don't need someone to come help them with things throughout the day. But it is nice to know if it's 2 o'clock in the morning and you have a medical need, there's somebody on campus ready, willing, and able to assist you. So the 24-hour EMT is a really nice safety net for our residents, just knowing that there's someone here to help if needed. When folks move to Atlantic Shores, there are 2 ways that they can move here. The first is our Signature membership, and this is essentially an annual lease. Now, the Signature membership is available on some of the apartment models, and it's really ideal for folks that are looking at true maintenance-free living, or they might not be ready to commit to living somewhere for a very long time. So again, what is most important to you? Let's say that you are in Virginia Beach because your adult children are here, but your adult children happen to be in the military. Well, if they move in 2 years, you don't want to stay here. So maybe leasing is the right bet for you. It's also ideal for folks who want true maintenance-free living, that if something breaks, you don't ever have to worry about taking care of the cost of replacement. Renting can be a really good idea for folks. And the benefit there is still that you get top priority for openings in healthcare. So as we have openings in the assisted living community or memory care community, our independent living residents have those openings secured for them. They are at the top of the line, whether you're renting or if you happen to be an owner. Now, ownership is what we were essentially founded on back in 1996. And like we've talked about before, we are a resident-owned real estate cooperative. And this is where residents moving to Atlantic Shores actually buy their apartment homes or their villa homes. Now, there are a lot of benefits to owning as well, because you could buy any property that you want and you have a resale opportunity or a legacy for your heirs. At the end of your time living here, whether you move to assisted living or a resident leaves the community, you have an asset that you can sell. And that's what truly makes Atlantic Shores unique. Past that, there are some tax benefits that owners enjoy every single year, and owners have the right to operate with community governance. Our owners are the ones who are voting to approve budget, to approve board members, to even run for the board. And this is the primary way that folks make their move to Atlantic Shores. As I mentioned a little earlier, we are a continuing care retirement community, so I want to take a moment to touch on that. Harbor Way is the assisted living community here at Atlantic Shores, and Marina Bay is our memory care environment. Now, both of these environments typically operate with some pretty long waiting lists for folks who are not currently living at Atlantic Shores, which is why we always advise folks, it's better to be here before you need to be here. Again, Atlantic Shores residents have top priority for those environments. The Seaside Health Center is the licensed skilled nursing and rehabilitation community here at Atlantic Shores. And funny enough, a lot of folks have their first experience with Atlantic Shores through a short stay at Seaside. Maybe you had a fall or some kind of medical event and put you in the hospital for a few days and then went to rehab for 7 to 14 days here at Seaside. It's how a lot of people get to know Atlantic Shores first, and it's available for residents and non-residents alike. And finally, the Wellness Clinic is our on-campus doctor's office. This is a big benefit for our residents, and I actually refer to it as our Costco rotisserie chicken because we do not make money on the Wellness Clinic, right? It's just like when you walk into Costco, where do you have to go to get that rotisserie chicken? All the way to the back, and you walk out with a TV, paper towels, toilet paper, and 2 huge things of ranch dressing that you don't need. It's their loss leader, and the Wellness Clinic is ours. But it's so crucial for our residents because it allows them to get their time back. The Wellness Clinic is right there in the clubhouse, open from 9 to 5 throughout the week. And so instead of spending your day getting in your car, driving to a doctor's office, sitting in a waiting room, seeing one person, then seeing the doctor, getting in your car and driving home, our residents just walk to the clinic after breakfast or after an exercise class. Think about the number of hours you spend on the road waiting for your primary care physician. This is a huge benefit to our residents. If you don't believe me, just ask the resident ambassadors. They'll tell you. Now that we've talked a little bit about what Atlantic Shores is, we're going to move into a financial conversation to discover the unique characteristics of our real estate cooperative. Now, as I mentioned earlier, there are 3 CCRCs in our market: Atlantic Shores, Westminster Canterbury, and Harbor's Edge. Now, before we get into what makes Atlantic Shores unique, we need to understand what other communities provide. And you'll see some words up on the screen during this section, and we're going to pay close attention here. We're going to spend a little bit of time talking about life care or life plan communities. I want to educate you today on what Atlantic Shores is not. A community like Harbor's Edge or Westminster Canterbury, there are life plan communities in Williamsburg, Richmond, Raleigh. Anywhere you go, you're pretty much going to find a life care or a life plan community. They're very, very common. And so before we move on, we're going to talk about what a life care or a life plan community is, and then we'll compare that to the financial structure here at Atlantic Shores. So let's jump in. And before we do, I did sit down and go over this whole thing with my wife who works at Harbor's Edge. So we're clear, we're in good shape. What I did is I went to a major life care community's website and pulled some text right from the site, from this community describing what their life care product offered. Now, pay close attention as we read this. Here's what they said on their life care website. Experts who study senior communities agree that their life care community, is the best retirement option. The proof is in the personalized attention and financial security that it provides. Our life care community is more than just welcoming to the residents who are part of it. We are also a community that protects resident assets from the potentially catastrophic costs associated with long-term assisted living, memory care, and skilled nursing care. And with our simple monthly fee, you are better able to predict your monthly expenses, even when health services are required. Now you'll see on the screen that we added some emphasis on some of those words because we're going to use that language to define what a life care community is. So, number one, a life care community is an insurance product. Let's look at their own words. Customers pay money to protect themselves against catastrophic costs, therefore allowing customers to predict monthly expenses and enjoy a sense of financial security in the event that they need to utilize the insurance policy's benefit. Think about it like your car. I've got a Toyota, and I pay State Farm a couple $100 a month, maybe it's $150 or so, to insure my Toyota. Now I'm protecting myself against a catastrophic cost, which is replacing my car. And in exchange, I get a predictable monthly payment that I have to pay for this insurance, and I get the financial security knowing that if I'm in an accident, I'm not going to have to fork out $20,000 or $30,000 to replace my vehicle. It's insurance. Now, what a lot of folks don't know is that life care and life plan communities actually hire actuaries. They hire folks to determine whether or not you, as a prospective resident, qualify for their insurance. Now, for the longest time, State Farm would not insure my home. Now, my wife and I live out in Norfolk, and so our home backs up to a little branch of the Lafayette River. And so forever, State Farm would not give us home insurance until a couple years ago, my agent called me and said, Cam, I've got great news for you. We're willing to write a policy on your home. I said, Brian, what changed? Why are you willing to insure my house? He said, well, every single time that we have a storm, knock on wood, our friends down in the Outer Banks take the beating for us. The storms come up the coast, they hit Hatteras, and then they push out to sea, and State Farm is not as worried about the likelihood of having to replace your home. And so they said they'd rather have a couple $100 a month to insure my house. Now, let me ask you this question. Did State Farm do that out of the goodness of their heart? No. It was a math thing. Their actuaries looked at storms, they looked at Norfolk, they looked at the construction of our home, and they said, you know what, we'd rather have a couple $100 a month and take on the risk of having to replace Cam's home than have nothing at all. And that's exactly what an insurance company does. And that's what a life care community does. See, in buying into a life care community, what you're buying is an insurance product. And prospective residents have to complete financial paperwork. You have to do a medical assessment so that that community's actuaries can determine whether or not they are willing to insure your financial future. Now, again, this is a new concept for a lot of folks. And a lot of folks also don't know that there are senior living actuary companies and that there's even one with an office in Virginia Beach. So, in simplest terms, a life care community is an insurance product. And that can be good for a lot of folks. How does it work? Well, there's a high upfront fee that benefits the community, and we'll get into this a little bit later. But many of you may have friends or family members who have bought into Life Care Communities and had to fork out a large upfront fee that goes right to the community's pocket. Then there's a higher monthly fee to prepay for future healthcare costs, and we'll see that a little bit later. But here's the benefit. Point 4, residents in these communities receive guaranteed care despite a future lack of funds. And that's what you're buying. That's the insurance product. Who is this ideal for? It's ideal for the person whose primary motivation is fear of outliving your assets. So, if you wake up every day and you're asking yourself, do I have enough? If you're panicked, if you're full of anxiety, if you're fearful that you don't have enough to make it, then buying into a Life Care Community and buying this insurance might be a really good idea for you, because life is too short to live it every day in fear. That's who this is ideal for. But here's the question I'd raise. Even if that is your primary motivator, a real estate cooperative could still work for you as well, because we have to answer this question: at what cost? We're going to buy an insurance policy, but at what cost? So let's dig in to some real numbers. Now, you'll see this up on your screen. What we're going to do is look at two different options here. Now, just about every continuing care retirement community has a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartment that's roughly 1,000 square feet. And so what we're going to do is compare real numbers from a Life Care Community and Atlantic Shores. And these are numbers for 2025. So let's look at the Life Plan Community. A single person buying into a Life Care Community might pay $550,000 up front. Now, I want to share a small caveat. A lot of these Life Care Communities have what's called refund plans, where when a resident leaves the community, they'll get a percentage of what they paid into it up front back later on down the road. Now, the numbers that we're using here are on a 0% refund plan, and that is what these communities promote most because they get to keep all the money. So if it's $550 on a 0% refund plan, on a 50% plan, it might be $800. Or on an 80% plan, it might be $1.2 million. You get the point. But just to compare apples to apples, we're going to compare the non-refundable entrance fees. So in a Life Care plan, you might pay $550,000 up front and about $5,700 a month. Compared to that same apartment at Atlantic Shores, it might cost you about $140 to purchase that apartment. And again, this is equity ownership. So you now own something that you could sell later on down the road, and a monthly service fee for that one person of about $3,700 a month. Now again, at Atlantic Shores, you're not prepaying for future healthcare needs. You're just paying for one care level at a time. So let's look at the savings that single resident would have through choosing Atlantic Shores. Well, they saved $410,000 up front. That's cash from the sale of your home or cash that you didn't have to take out of your investment accounts. And then they're saving about $2,000 a month in the reduced monthly service fee. Now, to figure out your annual savings, we're going to multiply that $2,000 by 12 for the number of months that you're here during the year. And we're talking about $24,000 each year just in annual savings on your monthly fees. Now, let's go big picture. Let's step out. Let's say that you live here for 10 years. Let's look at your total savings. Well, you saved $410,000 up front. Again, money you didn't spend. And over that 10 years, you saved $240,000 through paying a lower monthly service fee and not prepaying for your healthcare costs. So in total, we're talking about $650,000 that you saved over 10 years. Again, this is just money that you did not spend in giving to a community. And this example, again, is for a single individual in a 1,000 square foot 2-bedroom apartment. But let's look at villas. A 1,400 square foot villa, and in this scenario, this might be a couple moving in. Husband and wife go into the villa at 1,400 square feet. Similar size square footage in a life plan community is going to cost you around $740,000 up front on a non-refundable entrance fee. And then your monthly fee is going to be about $94.50 every month. We'll compare that to the Atlantic Shores purchase price of a small villa at 1,400 feet, about $265,000 and $5,700 a month. Again, some pretty substantial differences in these numbers. Let's run the same exercise and look at our savings at Atlantic Shores. Well, up front, that couple saved $475,000, and they're saving $3,750 every single month. So each year that couple's here, they're saving $45,000 in that lower monthly fee than they would at a life care community. Let's take it out again over 10 years. They saved $475,000 up front, and they saved $450,000 over 10 years with service fees. In total, $925,000 is the money that couple saved by choosing to move to Atlantic Shores as opposed to moving to a life care community. It's pretty substantial, right? It's an important conversation to have, but it's not the only conversation to have. What if? So what if instead of taking all of your hard-earned money that you've worked your entire career for and giving it to a community, what if you kept it for yourself? What if you used it to leave as a legacy to your heirs or to causes that you're passionate about? Shoot, what if you even used it to self-insure? If we stop the conversation with, well, here's how much money I saved, we're only having half a conversation. I highly doubt that you got to the point that you're at right now by just storing a bunch of cash in the backyard in a hole. Almost everyone's got their funds doing something for them. Why stop now? We have to look at opportunity cost. So let's transition a little bit and look at the amount of money that we saved and what it could be doing for you now. Let's put that savings to work. What we're going to do is take that amount of money that you saved and invest it in the market. So for that single individual, they saved $650,000 over 10 years. So let's pretend that I've got $650,000 sitting on this table. If I invest that money at 3% a year over 10 years, it's going to grow to $870,000. If I invested at 5% over 10 years, we're talking about $1 million. And if it's earning 7% over 10 years, we're talking about $1.275 million. That's some pretty substantial savings and growth. Let's talk about the couple, right? That couple saved $925,000 by choosing to move to Atlantic Shores. If they took that $925,000 and they put it in an interest-bearing account over 10 years, only at 3%, that $925,000 just turned into $1.2 million. If it's earning 5%, $1.5 million. And if it's earning 7%, it's earning $1.8 million. See, these numbers are so substantial and they're so important because if we don't think about opportunity cost, we're only having half a conversation. I talk to financial advisors all the time to educate them about the Atlantic Shores model. And these reasons right here are why so many residents and their financial advisors are choosing to move to Atlantic Shores. Now, I fully understand that your risk tolerance is going to get lower as you age. But friends, if your financial advisor can't get you 5%, you need a new financial advisor. It's not that complicated. Let's move on. Here's the big picture. These are things that you need to consider before you make your next move. Specifically at Atlantic Shores, the residents here have chosen to let the money that they work so hard to earn continue to work for their own benefit, not for the benefit of a life care community. Because think about it. When a resident buys into a life care community at a 0% refund, after a couple of years, that community has no liability with that money. They can use it however they choose. Let the money that you work so hard for work for you. Number 2, you cannot look past the opportunity cost of the money that you saved by choosing Atlantic Shores instead of a life care community. Number 3, equity ownership means that owners can sell their units in the future. And we didn't even talk about that with the chart that we used. Maybe you bought that villa for $265, and when you leave, you sell it for $300. Ding, 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 you won. Residents have the ability to sell their units in the future. And number 4, investment returns provide for owners to self-insure for future medical costs. And here's the big question we have to answer. What if I experience a worst case scenario? Now, this is something that folks hear oftentimes in the life care communities and in the market in general. There's a fearful understanding that people have that's a little bit off. See, a lot of folks will see and believe that everyone is going to end up in the skilled nursing home, or most seniors end up in skilled nursing, or 95% of seniors will end up in skilled nursing. And while we might not all know a lot about skilled nursing, all we do know is that it's really expensive. And you'll hear things like this. 95% of seniors will end up in skilled nursing. The average length of stay is 2 years, and the average cost per year is $150,000. Wow. If I end up in skilled nursing and I ride the averages at 2 years at $150,000, that's $300,000 I'm going to pay. See, a lot of people's their fear motivates them. And they hear those numbers and they say, oh my gosh, well, I'm just going to go buy the insurance and then I won't have to worry about it. But there's something going on here that you need to know. Those facts, those figures, it's not just about people who are living full-time in a skilled nursing facility. See, if you're living in your home in Lagomar or Sandbridge or Croatan, and you've been in a skilled nursing environment or a rehab environment, you count. You count. So if you had a fall or you had a stroke and you were in the hospital for a few days and rehab for a few more, you are in that statistic. See, friends, assisted living in Virginia is pretty amazing. Residents can remain in assisted living for a very, very long time. And the number of folks who eventually live full-time in a licensed skilled nursing facility in our state is relatively low because the state regulations. The state says what we can and can't do for folks in assisted living. And so unless you have very specific medical concerns that are out of the ordinary, or unless someone requires more than 2 nurses to help them get from a chair out of bed, chances are most residents are going to be able to age in place in independent living or assisted living. And it's important to understand that, and we can certainly dive deeper into that later. But let's just say, for the sake of the argument, you are the example. You end up in the skilled nursing facility and you're there for 2 years and it's going to cost you $150,000 a year. That's frightening, right? But let's go back a couple slides. Because all that money that you had saved, where is it now? It's in your pocket, right? So even for me, I'll jump back. Let's say that you were that single person and you lived here for 10 years. You had $650,000 that you didn't spend. You put it in a 5% investment account and now you've got $1 million. So if you take $1 million and you subtract $300,000 for your skilled nursing stay, you're left with $700,000 for yourself, for your heirs, for the people that you care about. The same with the couple. Husband and wife, I'm talking to you all. Let's say that you both end up in a skilled nursing environment and bleed through $600,000 of cash. Well, invested at 5%, you had 1.5 to start with. And now you have $900,000 to leave to your kids, to leave to a charity, to self-insure for your financial future. You see, friends, again, if we only talk about the money saved, we're having half a conversation. Opportunity cost is crucial, crucial, crucial. People have to understand this, and these are the conversations that we have with financial advisors all the time. And so if you have more questions about it or you want to dig into your situation in more detail, just let us know and we'll schedule a call and we can go over all of this with the folks that are in your quarter. Now, I want to share a story that is completely unrelated to everything else we've discussed. In 2022, I bought a 8-year-old Toyota 4Runner. Right? Okay, I can assume you're sitting there like this, right? Because that's how most people respond to me leading off of that story. But I want to tell you this story because it's pretty important. I drove a Scion. It had 200,000 miles, a little box car. My wife made fun of me because my wife is a redneck from Weir's Cave, Virginia, and she was used to dating guys with trucks. A whole other story I'll tell you about later. So I go looking for a new car, and I find the perfect used car. If you know anything about Toyotas, they don't break down, they're easy to maintain, they'll last forever, right? Great investment because I'm kind of cheap. And so I found this perfect used car. Now it was owned by a doctor. She lived up in Great Neck and she drove 2 miles to work every day. She was the original owner and it's a 2014 Toyota 4Runner with 40,000 miles on it. On paper, this is the perfect used car. So I reach out to her husband and I go take a look. Take it for a test drive, I look at the car. He says, what do you think? I said, man, it's pretty nice. I'll get back to you. Yo, I spent the next 3 weeks wearing this guy out. Texts, phone calls, question after question. I probably spent 20 hours on YouTube watching car mechanics talk about a 2014 Toyota 4Runner. I'm not handy at all. I couldn't do anything that they were doing, but just listening to what they said. I got a Consumer Reports membership just so I could read about what might happen to this car. I drove this vehicle 3 times, friends. The third time, this poor dude, I felt for him. He said, Cam, look, are you gonna buy it or what, man? You're killing me. You're killing me. And something happened the third time I drove the car. I pulled out onto Great Neck Road and I put the windows down and I turned on music. And I love music, I'm a guitar player. And the Toyota 4Runner has this rear window that goes down too. It's specific to Toyota, but I put that down and I put the sunroof down. And I just had this moment where I just said, this is it. This is it. And it wasn't the research that I'd done. It wasn't anything specific that I noticed in the car. It was just on the third test drive, I had a really unique experience and I had no anxiety or fear about the decision that I had to make that day. It was really weird. And it was really hard for me to identify why. But guys, sometimes we just know. Sometimes you just know it in your gut. And I got back to the guy's house and I said, I'm buying this car from you. We're all good. But for some reason, y'all, when people come to events like this and they start the process of learning, they feel like one visit will tell them everything they need to know. They think that one test drive is going to allow them to check the box and know whether or not they're supposed to live here or not. Y'all, that could not be further from the truth. You have to experience living somewhere before you can decide to actually make a move here. You've got to come and talk to the residents. See the people who live here. Take part in an activity. Whatever it might be, you need to take the time to invest in yourself so that you can determine where you want to be next. You know, so often people tell us after a first visit, well, hey, don't worry, I'm 2 years out. I'm not looking at making a move anytime soon. And I say, yes, that's why I'm calling to invite you to this party or this dinner or this event. If you're 2 years out, that means you have 2 years to test drive this car, to be here, to surround yourself with the people who live here, to ask the hard questions. I'd rather you visit 5 or 6 times and move to Atlantic Shores knowing beyond the shadow of a doubt that this is where you want to be than to visit twice and to come here on a wing and a prayer. Our sales counselors are good folks. They're not salesy. They're awesome people who want to help you along this journey, determining whether or not Atlantic Shores is right or wrong for you. Like I said earlier, it's right for a lot of people. It was wrong for my own grandmother, and that's okay. That's the point. Test drive the car. So here's what's going to happen next. You'll get phone calls or emails from us inviting you to stuff. Parties, gatherings, concerts, whatever it might be. The reason we do that is because we want you to get here and for us to release you to our residents. At almost every single one of our events, you'll find our salespeople sitting at the check-in table, and they're not going to be talking to you the whole time because the purpose is for you to come here and experience what it's like living here, not to be sold something. So when we call and invite you to an event, just know the seat with your name on it's already saved. The chef has prepared a meal for you. And whether you're 2 months from moving or 2 years from moving, we want you to come back and take the time to invest to see if Atlantic Shores is truly right for you. Now, in conclusion, I know this was a little different. I love getting to stand up at these events and see the faces of the folks who have joined us. And I'm sorry that I couldn't do that today. But I want to thank you for taking the time to sit here and to listen. I hope that it was beneficial. I hope you learned who we are, what we believe, what we're all about. And I hope the financial conversation was helpful at understanding both what life care communities offer and how the offering at Atlantic Shores is a little bit different. This is step 1. And embrace it. That's okay. If you leave today and the only conclusion that you have is, that's a viable option, mission accomplished. So come back and see us again. We're so grateful for your time. We're grateful for your consideration, and we hope that you'll join us again for an event in the future. God bless.